Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Groups. What do we got today? November 15th, 2024 meeting. It is 1:07 p.m. Thanks for your patience in getting started. We wanted to make sure everyone could get access. I'm Julia Hatton, and I am the DACAG Vice Chair, and I will be facilitating today's meeting. Before we start with roll call, just a quick reminder that Senate Bill 544 requires members of the DACAG who are participating remotely to remain visible on camera. If you have any challenges with internet connectivity during this meeting that are keeping you from being visible to other members in the public, just please publicly announce the reason you are off camera as soon as possible. And with that, we will proceed to roll call. Okay, Abimael. So here, Chelsea. Chelsea is here. Curtis. Elena. Here. Elena is here. Fred. Julia, that's me. I am here. Roman is not here. Sarah.
Here.
Hi, Sarah.
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Sorry. And Senite.
Here.
Hello. And Stephanie. Okay, so we have Chelsea, Elena, me, Sarah, and Senate. So I do not believe we have quorum. So we will go ahead and move forward with the meeting today, but we just cannot vote on any items. So that brings us to item 2, which is general public comment. And our agency staff will provide the meeting reminders and instructions for public comment.
Thank you, Julia. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zara Jamshed. I'm support staff for the DACAG and regulatory analyst at the California Public Utilities Commission. Supporting us today are my colleagues Dorothy Marini, Brian Young, and Jacob Wilman, as well as legal support from both agencies, Vanessa Baldwin and Renee Webster Hawkins. A few reminders. This meeting is being recorded and is being held both remotely and in person. Sorry that I'm not there in person. I'm recovering from an illness. Julia is a facilitator. We don't have quorum, so we will not be conducting any roll call votes. We've enabled WebEx's closed captioning feature to make this meeting more accessible. To use the closed captioning, please press Control-Shift-A or click on the bottom left CC icon. Once captions are turned on, attendees can click the 3 dots or more option at the bottom right caption box to view the captions and highlights. Now, the WebEx instructions for public comment. This public comment is an opportunity for attendees to give comments regarding any matters related to the DACAG or today's agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and we'll alert you when your timer is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those of you joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand and then *6 to mute and unmute. For those of you in person, please raise your hand and we will call on you. The chat feature is not available to attendees. It's solely for panelists to ask technical, procedural, or legal support. Are there any comments in the room?
Hello, this is Judith E. Clay, staff member from the CPUC in the very nice courtyard room here at 505 Van Ness. And we have no questions from members of the public, but lots of room if anyone wants to join in person.
Great, thank you. Are there any comments on the WebEx? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll turn it back to you, Julia.
Okay.
Julia, I believe you're muted.
Sure am. Thanks. Okay, so we will move on to item 3 with the opening remarks from agency leadership. And I'd like to start with the commissioners who are joining us today. You're welcome to say hello and share any brief remarks if you would like. And we'll start with the CEC and Commissioner Monahan.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to say that I know folks got a briefing on our Clean Transportation Program investment plan. And I wanted to give you a heads up that we are hoping to bring it to post the next draft soon, or the final one soon. And our goal is to present it in our December business meeting. And I know timing was tight for the DACAG to have a full set of comments. We listened to comments during the discussion, but just welcome any members who are interested to provide your own individual comments, not necessarily on behalf of the entire DACAG, but on behalf of your organization, if you'd like. I was planning to just ask our public advisor to circulate the final plan when it's available, and information about how to participate and comment publicly when we present it, hopefully at our December business meeting. I hope it doesn't slip until January. But I just wanted to let you all know that.
Thank you. Okay, next, I believe Commissioner Gallardo is going to join us later, but we do have Aretha Welch, who is an advisor in the Commissioner's office. Would you like to share any remarks, Aretha?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Yes, Commissioner will come on later today. I'm here on behalf of her until then. And I want to thank you for having me and for the critical work you all are doing. I'd like to warmly invite everyone on this call to join us for the upcoming Clean Energy Hall of Fame Awards, which will be on December 5th from 3 to 5 p.m. at the CNRA building located at 715 P Street in Sacramento. The event is a great opportunity to celebrate our leaders who are driving impactful change, and we hope to see you there. And as many of you know, we're also deeply engaged in our JEDI proceeding to craft an actionable and impactful action plan that embeds equity throughout the Commission's work. We recently held our first workshop in this series and are planning the second one currently. We're grateful Julia was a participant in our first workshop and shared a lot of great insights. And we see DACAG and the organizations that you represent as an essential partner in this journey. And we would truly appreciate your input as we continue to shape our approach. So with that in mind, we'd love to hear your thoughts on how best to foster ongoing communication about the JEDI proceeding. If it would be helpful, we're open to doing a presentation specifically for DACAG to provide an in-depth look into the work so far and to discuss possible potential collaborated efforts and your insights on the rest of the proceeding. Please feel free to share what you think would be the most effective way for us to keep this dialogue open and productive, and any next steps on meeting with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that first session was a great overview of just all the myriad ways the CEC has already been incorporating the JEDI framework into their efforts, and excited to continue engaging on that work. Okay, let's move to the CPUC. Commissioner Houck.
Thanks. Just a couple of things. One, I wanted to note we had a workshop down in Irvine on our climate adaptation proceeding. It was great to see Senite was there, and it was a good start to a discussion, and we hope to continue to have more discussions about community engagement on climate adaptation. This Monday, there's a virtual workshop in our high DER proceeding looking at data access issues, particularly focusing on DER programs for environmental social justice communities. So encourage anyone interested to check out our website or and participate and listen in on that workshop. We also had a workshop down at RingCon to talk about right-of-way issues on tribal land yesterday. We had a really good turnout from the utilities, state agencies, and I believe there were 15 tribes represented in the meeting. And we're going to continue those discussions and do a follow-up one first quarter next year in Northern California and PG&E's territory. We also just recently issued our general rate case in San Diego Gas and Electric and SoCal Gas's GRC. So if there's any information on that or an overview, we are moving forward with the decision. Comments have just come in and we're reviewing those, but we can also provide something possibly in December if people want additional information on that. We can figure something out and we can make sure you have the fact sheets that went out on the general rate case if you're interested. And I think that is about, there's a lot going on, but those are, I think, some of the big highlights that I just wanted to touch on.
Wonderful. Thank you for that work and for sharing. And Commissioner Douglas.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I don't have a whole lot to report before letting you get on with your business. I did, though, want to mention that the CPUC has recently hosted 2 workshops involving the topic of long-term gas planning, or at least related to the topic. One was focused on the earlier mapping requirements in the legislation 1221, and the other was focused on different ways of thinking about scenario analyses and long-term gas planning, where we had presenters from the Energy Commission and the Air Resources Board. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. Anyone else? Is there anyone else who'd like to make any comments in this section or any remarks? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to item 4, which is the minutes from the October 18th meeting. And since we do not have quorum, I think we're gonna skip this item, but do we do public comment anyway, Zara and others?
I don't think it's necessary. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we will do that next time. All right, so we're holding off on the October minutes. And we will move to item 5, which we are actually also skipping. Item 5 was held for any introduction and meet and greet with new DACAG members. We do have a new DACAG member incoming, but they are not present today. So we will move on to item 6, which is a CPUC presentation on the societal cost test, which I've really been looking forward to. So we were going to be hearing from CPU staff members Dan Buke, Leanne Hoadley, and Christopher Wessling, and I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm Dan Bush. I'm a program manager in the CPUC's Energy Division, and I'm happy to be here presenting on the societal cost test, which the CPUC formally approved earlier this year. Let's hop into it. First slide, please. Thank you. So just a little bit of background here about cost effectiveness tests at the CPUC. I'm talking about cost effectiveness tests and tools for distributed energy resources, behind the meter, things in the home, etc. We have a number of tests that have been developed over the past 30 years, and each of those tests looks at a different perspective. So the existing tests, we have the total resource cost test, the ratepayer impact measure, the participant cost test, and the program administrator cost. So just very quickly, I want to give you the perspectives. I'm going to go from the back. The PAC, the program administrator cost test, is from the point of view of more or less from the utility. And again, all of these are cost benefit tests. I should have said that to start. So what we're looking at are we're trying to compare costs and benefits to see whether it's cost effective. And we're looking at it from different perspectives. So the first one is this cost effective for the utility? Does the utility expend more funds in like program administration than the value of the energy saved? Second, the participant cost test, that's going to look at it, as it sounds like, from the perspective of the participant. We don't want to run programs where participants lose out, where they come out behind. So the PCT is sort of to ensure that participants benefit. The ratepayer impact measure is actually a slightly more complicated. I won't talk more about it other than to say it looks at the impact of the intervention on rates. Some things have costs on the one hand, but they also have an effect of driving down rates. And so the question for the RIM test is, are rates overall, are they going to rise or fall? That's what we're trying to find. And then the total resource cost test is a combination. It looks at the combined perspective of the program administrator and the program participant. So the TRC tries to look at the cost of the total resource, the energy resource, including the costs and benefits both for the energy portion of a thing, for both the utility that expends funds and the customer who has to potentially put some money out. So I want to give you that sense of like, that's our broad cost effectiveness framework. We use all of these tools. We use them in concert to try to understand the likely effects of different programs and proposals. And they're used in deliberation and decision making here at the Commission on Programs, funding, et cetera. Okay, the reason I'm here today, though, is to talk about the societal cost test. So the goal here is to add a fifth perspective, to have a broader societal lens so that we can look at some of the costs and benefits to society more broadly. There's a bunch of background here. I want it here so that you all can follow the threads. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the rest of the text on this slide, other than to say that we've been developing this societal cost test for a number of years. They're actually the original standard practice manual that outlined the other 4 tests that I was talking about had a little footnote for a societal variant of the TRC. And over the years, that had gone somewhat dormant, and the PUC has picked it up over, I would say, over the last 10 years and tried to really elaborate and develop a good societal test to add to our toolkit. This work started in 2017 with the development of the societal cost test, and just earlier this year, we finalized and authorized the sort of full service societal cost test. Now, just draw your attention to 1 or 2 other things. We've done a bunch of evaluation, that's the second to last bullet, to try to understand the likely effects of the societal cost test, and that we've done a bunch of research to try to generate air quality impacts in particular that are included in the societal cost test. So that's enough for this slide. Let's move to the next, please. Great. So this is the sort of the core. What we do for our avoided costs, for our cost effectiveness tests, we compare, I said, costs and benefits, and the benefits here are defined as the costs that we would otherwise have to pay to provide safe, reliable service in California. Usually, traditionally, that's looking at the costs that would be on the supply side of the equation. So, just to make that concrete, if you install a more efficient air conditioner, or you put solar on a rooftop in a residential setting, the benefit is in the primary benefit there that we're calculating are the avoided inputs or infrastructure that would be needed to serve that energy that you're now avoiding with your more efficient air conditioner. So we're avoiding the cost of energy, we're avoiding capacity, the sort of the size. We don't have to build the system quite as large. There's some other benefits I'll get to there. You can see a larger list on the next page. The societal cost test is, as I sort of mentioned before, it's a variant of the TRC in some sense. And so we use most of the same benefits as we use for most of our other tests, and we compute those in what's called the avoided cost calculator. We've just finished updating it for 2024, and I'm happy in another venue to talk about that or answer questions. I don't, it's a little off to the side of the topic here. What I want to focus on for the societal cost test is that we add we add and or substitute a few different avoided costs to represent what we to get a view of what the avoided costs to society might be in this case. So let me give you there are a few things here. I'm not going to spend too much time on them. The first is the discount rate. Traditionally, in most of our tests, we use a discount rate derived from the sort of cost of capital for the utilities. This uses a lower discount rate, and the idea is that it values a lower discount rate values the future more than a high discount rate. So part of using this is sort of to try to get at some of the intergenerational issues that may or may not be represented by using the short-term utility weighted average cost of capital to discount. So for example, benefits in the future have greater value in the present with a lower discount rate. So here we're using a 3% discount rate. The discount rates vary by utility, but are in the range of, well, I'm not sure what they are currently. I think they have been in the range of 8, 9, 10%. So you can see a significant difference. We use a social cost of carbon. This is derived from the federal government, I believe from EPA estimates. And we use both a base cost and a high cost. So in a sense, we have two variants of the social cost of carbon. And the idea being the 50th percentile is the sort of average, and the 95th percentile is a sort of where damages are more extreme than what we estimate as the sort of the 50th percentile case. So we have two estimates of the cost of the damage cost of carbon. We include a value for methane leakage that isn't included in the regular ACC because methane leakage isn't regulated, but here we're including it because it leaks out and causes has damage for the broader society. And then finally, we have an air quality adder derived from an extensive review of the literature of $14 per megawatt hour. Again, air pollution isn't necessarily captured in our normal avoided cost calculator, but we capture it here as a broader social ill or avoided air pollution as a social good. And then finally, this is a sort of a definitional issue, but we do treat federal incentives as a transfer payment. That basically means that we treat society here as more as California. For the purposes of otherwise federal incentives might be treated as a cost, and we don't want to do that in our cost effectiveness tests. So that was a bit of depth. There is a fair bit more we could drill down, and we're going to go to the next slide, and it's going to be really colorful, and there's a lot there. And I am happy to drill down with folks as far as my depth goes, which is sort of mid to 2/3 of the way down. If you really, really want to drill down on the specifics here, I probably will ask to take your questions and follow up offline with some really specific with our technical experts. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, there's a lot on this slide. So I would say these are the actual values using the avoided cost values for the societal cost test compared with our normal avoided cost calculator. Just to read the thing, each of these is in pairs, just as you go across. So the key thing to look at is the comparison of each set of pairs. And here we're looking at the bottom. You can see we're looking at a few different distributed energy resources and trying to give you a sense of like what the difference is in our calculated avoided costs, how we normally do it, and with the societal variant. And what I want to draw your attention to in particular is that the values are higher. And here I'm comparing the societal cost test with the high social cost of carbon. So the higher of the two variants for the societal cost test. And we're comparing it to the normal ACC. And you can see across these different pairs, you can see that the benefits or avoided costs are slightly higher, or somewhat higher, in each of these cases. So residential cooling, solar plus storage, And the costs part, you can see it's sort of the reverse. So the EVs and the residential heat pumps, they're consuming energy. And so with the higher avoided costs, if we're actually using the thing, that means higher costs. So with the social cost of carbon, if you're using more electricity, there is slightly more cost to society than not, because we don't have a perfectly clean system yet. Okay, then the last thing I want to draw your attention to, and then draw your attention away from, are all the things on the right-hand side. Those are what create the stack here. Those are our actual avoided costs. The thing I want you to know is that most of those are included, and you can see it in the color coding, are included in both stacks. There are only slight differences. So for example, the addition of, up at the top, the blue, and in my screen at least, a sort of a light green, for the air quality adder and methane leakage, you would only see those on the societal cost test slides. Now, I think I want to stop here just for a second and see if there are any clarifying questions. I have one more slide that just to sort of wrap up things, but I don't want to go off of this slide if there are clarifying questions that folks have right now. Okay, hearing none, we can always return to it if they're at the end of the presentation. If we could go to the next slide. Okay, so this is just to sort of wrap up. This is work completed. The commission issued a final decision in July adopting the societal cost test, and it has been fully implemented. It was implemented in the ACC resolution that voted out last week. I think the other thing to know is that we are in the process of putting together a tool here, and it actually has a toggle. So that if you're looking, this is a pretty technical tool. I encourage you all to look at it, and if you have questions, every time I look at it, I have questions. Send us questions. We'll get our technical folks to help explain. What I really want you to know is that there's a toggle, so that basically we go back and forth between two sets of avoided costs. And then finally here, just a reminder that the societal cost test now joins our group of 5, it's now 5 tests that we use for deliberation and decision making. And it's an information only test in the sense that all of our tests, except for the TRC, are information only. We use them as inputs, and in our deliberation, we use them as information. The TRC remains the primary cost effectiveness test by decision. That was a policy decision of the commission. It has maintained the TRC as its primary cost effectiveness test for many years, and did not make any change to that in this decision. And with that, I'll see if there are questions. I have one thing I might go back to when folks ask about the colorful slide. One thing I forgot. We'll get there, I bet. So let me open it up to questions. And again, thank you for the opportunity to present. And very happy to take your questions and explain what I think is very important work.
Thank you so much, Dan. I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name at the beginning there. Thank you for being here and sharing all of this. I have all kinds of questions, but I will defer to, oh, actually, do we need to do public comment first? Let's see. Yes, we're going to do public comment first.
So this is Judith E. Clay in the room, and there are no questions in the room. Zara?
Great. The DACAG now welcomes public comments on this item. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and we'll alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so we can call on you using the raise hand feature on WebEx that looks like an open palm. If you're joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand and then press *6 to unmute. Are there any comments on the WebEx? Seeing none, turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Any DACAG members want to start with questions for Dan? Yeah, Elena, please.
I have a lot of questions, so I think I'll start on page 1, see if other people have page 1, and then I'll come back to me again so I don't hog the time. I just had first of all, starting on the first, I guess maybe the second slide here. I appreciate the 3% social discount rate. I think that's a good idea. I had a question on the methane leakage values, where those came from.
So if you go back one page in the presentation, that last bullet, in 2021 we published a report about quantifying air impacts.
Okay.
Sorry, it's in that first background slide, and that's a pretty comprehensive review of the available research, and that's the primary source that we derive, from which we derive the 2.3 figure.
Okay. Part of that was that I think I've seen some numbers that are close to 2.3 on a production basis, but closer to 2.9 on an end use basis. And so I was wondering if this is a production basis leakage rate or an end use basis leakage rate.
You've reached beyond the limits of my knowledge. I'd be happy to follow up. We can answer probably pretty quickly this afternoon, but I can't answer that right here.
Okay, great. I thought that might be the case. For the air quality adder, is that an air quality adder that's based on marginal emissions? How is that being applied?
So it's based. Let's see. So again, these are good questions. You definitely know your tech specs here. So let me try and I'll answer some of it, and we'll probably have to follow up on the last part. My recollection is that it is based on emissions, but then I'm trying to remember the process by which we converted it to a dollars per megawatt hour in energy basis in order to be able to use it in the avoided cost calculator, because we don't have marginal emissions as an input. We only have we measure energy units, and so we need to have our avoided costs generally in energy units in order to get an appropriate value. We can definitely. I think we have a short. We actually have a short methodology piece on this that we can get to. I don't. It's a little bit weedy, and my recollection of exactly how we did it is a little bit fuzzy. So I'd rather do it the right way and get you the actual information.
Great. I love those numbers, just to try to figure out what kind of generation we're actually displacing here in order to calculate the cost value. Is this an inefficient peaker plant? Are you replacing the gas combined cycle, hydro? What's happening? Anyway, so I love that.
And you just reminded me, and one of my team members pinged me to remind me that it's average values, not marginal.
Okay.
That was the piece that I was forgetting.
Well, I guess that would then go to my comment, which would be, it would be really helpful, I think, we know that there's very different grid emissions at different times of the day, and that different types of interventions are going to have an impact on whether or not you're reducing, is an efficient refrigerator is going to have an impact that's average. And if you're going to do air conditioning or lighting, that's going to have a very specific time of use impact. So I think this is very cool. And I also would encourage thinking specifically about the time impact on the emissions for that adder. I have more questions and comments, but I'll leave there for someone else.
I'll just say,
in.
I think that would be the ambition.
Okay.
And I may, I think it'd be better for us to follow up, and we can talk a little bit more about where our
goals are.
The impediments are. Maybe you have some ideas for us.
I have lots of ideas. Great. Thanks. I'll pass over.
They're amazing questions, Lena. Mine are not going to be as smart. But I am curious. I thought that in the energy efficiency proceedings that TRC was going to be replaced by TSB, total system benefit. And I'm wondering if that is still the case and how that fits into these 5 other metrics. That's my first question.
So I don't work on efficiency, but I used to. I think I can answer this question. If we go a little further, I may have to ask our energy efficiency colleagues to chime in. The TSB is the total system benefit. It is actually just the positive side, the benefit side of the ledger for a cost benefit test. That is the TRC, which also includes the costs. So the TSB is just the benefit metric. And what energy efficiency did a number of years ago, they used to have their goals in energy units, gigawatt hours, megawatt hours, thousands of megawatt hours and therms. And they converted all of those goals into total system benefit, which is in dollars. And it's the value. And they now set their goals and measure the sort of benefits of the programs in total system benefit. The key thing is that that's the benefits on a TRC. The cost effectiveness metric, though, is still the TRC because you have to compare it to the costs. And so they do both TRC. They do TRC for cost effectiveness and TSB for goals in efficiency.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense, actually. So, thank you. That's very clarifying. The other piece, and this may also just be specific to energy efficiency, is that there was a non-energy benefits working group that the CPUC was convening for a while. Is that part of this at all, or is that like yet another separate thing?
That has not been involved in the societal cost test. I'd need to, let me look on, I'm not sure if we have any of our efficiency colleagues on the line.
Market rate non-energy benefits working group, I believe.
I apologize. I've not been involved in that work.
Okay.
I believe that's energy efficiency specific and may require a more of an EE expert to respond.
Okay. And then this is related, I think, to one of the agenda items that we have later on this afternoon, and that is the governor's executive order around energy affordability. To what extent is the societal cost test going to be used in the CPUC's determination around what programs are what ratepayer funded programs might be at risk under that executive order?
That's a difficult question. I don't think I can answer it. My understanding is that the internally folks are trying to understand the executive order and are sort of getting organized. I do not have. I'm not aware I don't think I can report any particular criteria that have been decided upon at this point, whether or not it involves the societal cost test or any other metric for that matter. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. And then I have another comment, but Elena, do you want to should I tee you up again?
Does anyone else have questions or comments here before I jump in? Great. All right. I was wondering what is forward-looking in terms of, thinking about some of those additional non-energy benefits and whether any of those would be incorporated at a later point, and thinking about, benefits like price volatility or resilience.
We're always we run a biannual proceeding to update the avoided cost calculator and to consider any modifications to the Commission's cost effectiveness framework. We have an open proceeding right now. So there's always opportunity. There is generally pretty much always an open proceeding in which folks could, for example, make motions, etc. I don't think, let me think in terms of the specific benefits. Some of those were raised in this most recent cycle, and the Commission made determinations for the time being. For example, I do believe that resilience was raised by one or more of the parties, and the Commission did not adopt an avoided cost for resilience. I believe there's a little bit of information in some of our recent decisions. That said, that doesn't preclude its consideration in the future by any means. So I think that certainly could be brought to the Commission. I do want to say that these are societal benefits, and that not all non-energy benefits necessarily would be appropriate for a societal cost test. And sort of leave it there to think about. All right, I think non-energy benefits are a topic of some interest out there now and at many points in the past and the future. Not all of them would fit under this rubric. Some could be considered potentially.
Elena, you're on mute.
I think I would argue that resilience does show as a broader societal benefit, especially if it is something that we can think about for, again, we're thinking about, household levels of affordability and participant costs and things like that. If this isn't the right place for that, then that should be incorporated somewhere else. But I would include those within broader societal costs and impacts. Air quality also, for example, is going to be localized, right? It's not universal in the way that climate is. So I do think that those have some value. I had another question on the societal total avoided cost by end use, which is whether or not the avoided transmission and distribution capacity are also taking into account time of use, since there's certainly times of day when.
So maybe in the interest of time and for other, the question you're asking now is much more of a sort of an avoided cost calculator, but general avoided cost question rather than a societal cost test question.
Okay, we can leave that. Yeah.
I'm super happy to answer, but maybe I'm not sure if everyone else wants to go all the way down on time of use in avoided distribution and transmission. Though I'm happy to do it if that's how folks want to use the time.
We can follow up later. That's fine. Can we? I guess I would love to deep dive just into this, so I'm understanding what is happening here. On slide 4, this is the societal total avoided cost by end use. Is this saying that I guess I don't quite understand which buckets are avoided costs versus which ones are costs, the little green and red tags at the bottom. What's happening here?
So this is a heat pumps, residential heat pumps increase electricity usage. And so in this case, we're not doing avoided costs, we're actually doing the increasing costs based on the avoided cost calculator.
Oh,
So it's just sort of, you're flipping the sign here. So here, using a societal cost test, the costs of a residential heat pump, the societal costs are higher than what we measure as the costs to the system, for using a TRC. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I can try a couple other ways. I want to make sure it gets through.
So what you're saying here basically is that for a residential heat pump, you're likely increasing your gas impact. So it's going to increase gas use. Is this accounting for displacing in-home gas heating?
That is not an electrification value. I didn't include, we have another colorful slide that has some of the electrification impacts and does a sort of a net. That's not this one. This is where so for example, the two on the left could be a heat pump, and the res cooling being the summertime and the res heat pump heating being the wintertime. And the net effect with those two sort of depends on when you run them, et cetera. The key thing I wanted to get to here, and you're right, what we're measuring with societal costs, recall that we're adding a few things and we're changing the discount rate. So we're adding air quality impacts that we don't have in the ACC. We're adding a societal measure of the cost of carbon, and we're adding methane leakage. Okay. Those three are all avoided costs. Those are avoided costs that aren't in the ACC. So we should imagine that the avoided costs are higher. Right, when we take this societal lens, we should be seeing slightly more costs avoided. And on the flip side, if in fact we're doing more usage rather than reductions, then we should be measuring more costs, because we're measuring those societal costs that we didn't include before. We're measuring the cost if you're running a residential heat pump. We're including the costs of methane leakage, for the power plant that is powering your heat pump, for example.
Sorry, so this is or isn't including the displaced gas for heating or the displaced gasoline from a electric vehicle in place of a gas car.
This slide is not. This slide is not. Like you're talking about the fuel substitution or the
Yeah. So if you're looking at like the total climate benefit, the climate benefit is in part displacing those fuel end uses.
So I don't have it here. What you'll find when we do when we put the sort of the net together is that we do get slightly higher benefits for electrification in the societal cost test case than in the sort of in the standard ACC.
Okay. So those get
that's
included.
Not on this slide, but that I believe that does show. I have to dig out another deck. And
okay. So the air quality and climate benefits of fuel switching are included somewhere else.
Well, the avoided gas in fuel switching.
And the avoided gasoline.
Sort of either the unregulated gasoline or the natural gas. Those are not shown here.
Okay, but that is included somewhere.
We can calculate both sides for these measures. Yes, it's just not included on this slide.
Okay, but you are including it somewhere.
As I said, we're trying to keep the deck relatively.
Oh no! I'm unclear if you're saying. I'm very sorry. I'm just unclear if you're saying you can calculate it or that you are calculating it.
We have calculated it.
Okay.
Well, cool. Gasoline is harder. We don't because we don't regulate gasoline, so it's not included in a fuel substitution calculation within the Public Utilities Commission. But for example, we do this for energy efficiency fuel substitution measures all the time.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and this is an opportunity. The one thing I wanted to mention. So you'll notice that the values for the societal benefits are higher, but they're not that much higher. It's not a huge difference. Yeah. And part of that reason is that we're using a social cost of carbon. That's a kind of a damage estimate. Yeah. But we already include a value for GHG, avoided GHG, which is a compliance cost. That is what the utilities have to meet their GHG compliance obligations under California's cap and trade and other regulations. That cost is already included in our normal ACC. And it turns out that even the EPA's high figure, our compliance cost is in the same ballpark. Like what California measures as the compliance cost is lower, and that's good. We want it to be lower to reduce carbon than the damages from emitting carbon, because then there's a good reason, like we can do it cost effectively. It's a good thing, but they're not dramatically lower. It's not orders of magnitude, and therefore, what you don't see a huge jump when you go from left to right in each of these pairs. I had forgotten to mention that earlier, but I think it's important so that you have a sense that even when we use, say, the TRC, most of that same GHG stuff is included in the calculation because our compliance costs, and just to be clear, if you do one or the other, you can't do, they don't stack, because if you avoid the compliance, you avoid the damage. They go together. You can't stack those two values together.
Interesting.
Anyway, that's why the shift, it doesn't seem as large, because we already have a relatively high compliance cost for carbon in California and included in the TRC.
So that's the cap and trade to GHG adder. Okay, interesting. One last question for me, which is, you said that since these are information only tests, how do they actually affect decision making?
That's a great question. So, we have one test that the commission has designated as a primary test, and that one the commission has further elaborated some like rules of thumb that are requirements in different proceedings, et cetera. So those are like TRC, different minimum cost benefit ratios for different things, programs, portfolios, et cetera. That is all the rest of the tests have always been used to triangulate. So the requirement in the decision is that when, say, the utilities are applying for funds for a DER program, they have to calculate all of the results for all of these tests. And that lets both the parties, stakeholders, and the commission gives us the information to review. One of the things that we find, for example, is that there may be marginal cases where there's good reason to look at the full set of tests and understand the value or the benefits of different interventions, and that there may be some. I would say that Joy Morgenstern, who used to lead this work as a retired analyst, is retired now, was an analyst in energy division for a long time, and she used to always tell me that the tests were only so good. The tests were great, but what mattered was whether the decision makers looked at them, and part of her practice had been to present all the metrics every time she went upstairs. So let me say it this way: information only is useful because more information informs the public, informs the decision makers. It allows parties to use that information to make good arguments for the commission to consider. So I happen to think that, and I will tell you, in various proceedings, we have used one or other of these tests. Have made important conclusions. The commission has made important conclusions based on not just the TRC.
Thank you.
Great. And I think we want to start moving on to our next item, and we have a little quick break coming up. But the comment I want to make is just, and I know this is something you're aware of, but the total resource cost test has historically been extremely disadvantaging to work in priority communities. And part of the reason for that is that it is often more expensive or more costly to reach hard to reach underserved customers and communities. But the energy savings or whatever the benefits might be are the same. And to date, there has been no real progress on ensuring that the programs that are delivered to equity communities are prioritized and preserved. And the answer, whenever there is a question about what programs should continue versus what programs should be cut, it almost always comes down to the TRC, and that TRC eliminates programs for equity communities. So I would love to just someday, somehow, and I think some of that, at least in the energy efficiency world, has been addressed through the equity portfolios, but TRC is still out there. TRC is still part of those evaluations. So someday it would be wonderful to see an appropriate valuing of programs and services for equity communities. Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
Thanks for sharing this with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, we now have a 5-minute break, so let's come back at 2:05. Thanks, everybody. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Give folks a minute to come back on screen. We are running slightly behind schedule, but I think the next several items, because our DACAG member attendance is low today, they might be shorter items. So I think we're going to be doing okay on time. The next item, item 8, is the updated DACAG Equity Framework, which we updated earlier this year. And the ongoing conversation that we've had, and I'll open this to public comment in a minute, but the ongoing conversation we've had is around how do we actually implement this framework? How do we make sure that it's fulfilling its purpose? How do we make sure that it's being used at both agencies that we advise? How do we sort of socialize it and implement it? So that is the conversation I'd like to have a little bit of today to get some additional ideas and thoughts from both DACAG members and any staff who'd like to chime in. And we will open up for public comment.
Thank you, Julia. The DACAG now welcomes public comments on this item. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and we'll alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand and then press *6 to unmute. For anyone in the room, please raise your hand. All commenters should spell their name and give your affiliation for the record and then share your comment. Are there any comments in the room?
Hi, this is Julian Lee. I'm a staff member here. There's no comments in the room right now. Thank you.
Great. Are there any comments in the WebEx? Okay, seeing none, pass it back to you, Julia.
Okay, so maybe I can just start with a reminder of the purpose of that we said that we hope this framework would fulfill. And that was to guide and focus the DACAG itself as we engage in and discuss and comment on proceedings and programs before the CPUC and CEC. And then it was also to guide agency staff and commissioners as they determine how to embed and center equity in their efforts. It's also to prioritize funding and resources for the individuals and communities in California most impacted by climate change. And it is to guide proceedings and decision-making processes, especially those that might be lacking the engagement of individuals and communities most impacted. And then it's to guide agency staff and commissioners on our general position on specific equity-related considerations. And the categories that we pulled out were non-energy benefits, affordability, access, outreach and education, community engagement, health and safety, financial benefits and economic development, workforce development, consumer protection, and then we added a section on metrics, evaluation, and accountability. So I think the question that we've asked a lot as an advisory body is sort of like, how do we make sure that our impact, that our feedback has impact? How do we follow up on that impact? And how, when we make recommendations, how do we make sure that we're really providing useful used guidance? So that is what we want to continue sort of discussing now, is any additional recommendations or questions about how specifically the CPUC and CEC might be able to use this framework, what our hopes are, what the parameters are, what our constraints might be. So I will open it up to anyone who wants to chime in. And oh, please, yes, Sarah.
Well, I actually first had just an operational question as far as note taking for this item. I guess we aren't going to be able to take any action anyway, but do you want me to take like more detailed notes of the comments? 'Cause I usually just say, discussion happened.
If we have any specific recommendations that come out of it, that would be helpful. And if you don't capture them all, this is all recorded anyway, so we can always go back.
Oh, right, I forgot.
Yeah, but thanks.
I do not remember how the CEC operationalizes the equity framework and the work that we do. If anybody could share that. Because I think I'm more clear on like how it fits into some of the CPUC's environmental and social justice action plan.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something similar at the CEC?
CEC has the JDI framework, and if I'm not mistaken, our equity framework, it references the JDI, but I think it also got docketed as part of that proceeding. Is that right, CEC folks?
Hi there.
Hi there.
Can you hear
Yes,
me?
it was docketed in the JDI proceeding, and Commissioner Gallardo acknowledged that both documents and frameworks have been an inspiration to each other and will continue to be.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, please go ahead, Tanit.
Thanks, Julia. I think it would be probably helpful to know a little bit the history of the equity framework. Like, was it created because the direction came from the commission, or was it a document that was created by the DACAG members? Since I'm new, I don't know the background history of it. So that would be helpful.
That's a great question, and folks can help me out here a little bit. But my understanding is that when the DACAG first formed, they created this framework, and the purpose at the time was to guide their own sort of process and conversation, and sort of make sure that all of the members were on the same page when it came to what it meant to talk about equity in this particular space. And then it was also intended as like a guiding document for CEC and CPUC staff and leadership. So if the DACAG wasn't available for a meeting, or if there was like, I wonder what the DACAG would say about this, they could sort of refer back to the framework and have some initial guidance. And I think it was used a lot. It was used pretty extensively in a lot of different ways, mostly informally, but still got used a lot. And then we started talking about updating it maybe last year, just because we felt like between the time that it was created and now, there were new things that we had learned, things we wanted to elaborate on, questions that sort of were coming up on a pretty regular basis in the meetings. And we thought, okay, we're sort of giving the same answer multiple times to some of these questions. So let's make sure that those are reflected in an updated framework. Let's make sure that the audience of this framework is more clear. Let's just sort of flesh it out a little bit more. So that's where it is now. It's sort of the just next step evolution, again, to guide us, but also to provide guidance to staff, and then also to provide, ideally, to sort of represent voices that may not be in the conversations that impact them the most. Does that help?
Yeah, no, it does. Thank you. So I think my thought on this would be maybe it would be nice to ask staff and the commissioners to see if they found that document helpful in decision making, or or are they using it for any proceedings that they're involved in? Do they refer it often, or I mean, for us, I think I can see it. It's very helpful, and then I think it's an excellent document that was created. But it would be nice to know from other parts, I guess, other attendees, to see what if they found it beneficial, or if they often refer to it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the same. And for me, my interest is sort of two-part. Like, one, how do we make sure people know that it exists and are referring to it and using it? But I'm also really curious if there's a way to formalize that in a more, I don't even know, like, regulatory way, so that it is considered and referred to automatically before any proceeding that relates to any of the issues that are in it. And I think there's some precedent for that with, like, the CPUC's Environmental and Social Justice Framework, but we're not quite sure how to get there with this specific document. So yeah, I'd love to, maybe if anyone could chime in on tonight's question, and then on the latter portion of that question as well.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Hi.
Hi. So I'm Cheryl Cox, supervisor of the Climate and Equity Initiative section. And so I can report on a few things. About a year ago, we did present to the DACAG on all the ways that staff have used the equity framework. That was before the new one came out. And of course, we have a lot of new members now on the DACAG. We're happy to share that, to understand. There were a lot of, I don't have that report before me, but there were, I don't know, about 10 proceedings that actively staff using it to inform staff proposals and so forth. I think a couple months ago, I reported that we have shared very broadly internally with all our commissioner offices, with all of our energy division staff, with our CPUC liaison group that works on ESJ issues around the ESJ action plan. So we're really trying to create awareness. I think I also noted that a couple times a year, Zara and I work together with energy division staff to get updates on how are we progressing on the ESJ action plan. And so we have added a component to that where we will seek from staff. We will ask the question, how have you used it? Like I said, we do it twice a year, but proceedings have pretty broad timelines. So 6 months is probably about right to actually get some updated information. And so that's something we can continue to report on as we understand how it's used. I think, as we've noted before, that we see that as the DACAG and the DACAG's input is part of energy division staff implementing the ESJ action plan. It's actually written in there as an action item. So, as you're saying, and with more information that can actually inform staff's work, that it can be like a great reference guide in doing that. So those are the things kind of off the top of my head right now that, but like I said, we can continue to keep you updated on that so that you have, I think this is aligned with what we've talked about before, of sort of that, connecting the dot on the feedback loop, just in everything, your feedback. And I think it's just another component of that. Any questions on those? Okay.
just to follow up on that, I think what Julia suggested, if there is a path and making it actually a required document to include in any proceedings and all that, if we can explore that venue, I would be very supportive. The reason being that every funding that comes out from the federal government and the state government has like specific allocation for DAC or you know, for climate, environmental justice communities, you know, the Justice 40, you know, 30% has to go to this and 40% of the fund has to go to support these communities. If we are using the fund to support these communities and having that kind of guidance to go with documents is incredibly important. So I second Julia's, I guess, suggestion.
Go ahead, Elena.
I was, you know, and I think about these questions that we have. I'm like, what was this originally intended for? And like all of this stuff. Do we have any kind of onboarding for DACAG? I feel like I joined and also had to like, wait, what's an annual report? When does this do? What? You know, like a bunch of things like that that are sort of happen by matter of course that I like eventually figured out, sort of. But like it'd be nice to have a history that doesn't just have to get passed on. I know that takes more work, but I wonder if we could come up with some kind of like brief onboarding for some of these items.
Well, I think in the December meeting, this is Judith E. Clay, you know, we normally focus a little bit more on the administrative things. So we have our attorneys come in and go over the charter and we, you know, brief you on some of the various requirements. So we could, you know, make that a little bit more extensive. Or yeah, I think, but if it's more a little bit internal within the membership onboarding, you know, then that might be something you might want to time with the December meeting, assuming our newest member is there. You know, yeah. I mean, we do like to do it kind of batched just for efficiency, but that might be something to think about for the agenda for next meeting.
So I will note, Elena, we do onboardings before, and when everybody starts, they get sort of a crash course and, you know, Bagley Keene and that kind of thing. But, you know, as you note, it's complicated and sometimes it doesn't resonate until you actually need to use it, right? And sometimes it might not be often. And so as Judith noted, usually the December meeting is left for these more administrative kinds of items where we can do refreshers, do a little bit more of a deep dive. So that's planned, but I think, you know, if you have any specific questions that as we sort of put that meeting together, that we should make sure that we address, that could be very helpful. I know that we've talked about doing more of a presentation about agency process. That could be, I mean, I realize also we have 3 hours to put all this into, right? But I do think some of the questions you're asking, at least from the CPUC side, that have to do with setting the scope of a proceeding. And as I'm sure you know, everything is very much about parties and stakeholders, and everyone gets to comment on what that scope is, and that's all determined for each proceeding. I think I'd mentioned this before, is that even with the ESJ action plan, you know, that was not like the commission decided, oh, it's magically in every proceeding. It followed the same kind of process. You know, it went through about a 2-year public vetting. It was voted on by the commission. And then even each proceeding determines with party input of whether that should be part of the scope. So that's just sort of a little teaser, but that sort of gives you a sense. And, you know, I think it really might be helpful, you know, not to go, you know, because the practice and procedure can get very dense, but I think we just want to do it at a high level to give you some concepts about how things are set up.
Yeah, I think from an onboarding, I'm thinking almost like an internal to the DACAG itself onboarding. Like, hey, we're losing all this like history as we have people who like move off and they don't know where things came from or like what the arc of the conversation was. Is there a way to say what the equity framework is, or the challenges we've had with the annual reports and what we're trying to do, or something like that? I don't know.
Well, since you have to be careful about quorum, I don't know if
Mhm.
that's something that you might want to have as part of your agenda, where you guys can actually just kind of maybe have those discussions. That might be one
That might be
idea.
an idea. Anyway,
Is
I
the
think what
DACAG?
you're,
Go ahead.
I was thinking that what you were describing might be something like the chair would meet with like a new member, but not in a group, one by one when they join, and kind of give them. I know it's probably not in their job description, but that would ideally be how it works.
As long as that doesn't result in serial meetings where he's saying, do this, do that, right? The
Yeah,
one by
no, I was
one,
just thinking
yeah,
like an orientation
Yeah.
of like, this is the
Yeah.
DACAG, this is how it started, this is where we're at, like on certain things.
Yeah, I think that would be great in combination with what Cheryl was describing coming from the agencies, talking more about just like how decisions get made and how things get moved forward. I personally would find that really helpful. And then I think it would help answer some of our questions about how we can be the most effective in providing guidance. Well, it sounds like the socialization part of the framework is moving forward and happening both at CEC and CPUC, and that's fantastic. Sounds like we have some more socialization to do among ourselves as members as part of an onboarding process. Really like that idea. And then I think this question of like implementation and the path for making this like part of proceedings and a requirement to be considered, that's sort of the open question that we need some additional guidance on. Does that sound right? We'll continue to talk about that in the agenda setting and see if we can get some folks to share more with us about how that might work, how it might not work. And unless there's anything else, I think I will move us on to the next item. Anything else before we move on? Okay, so now we are on item 9. And this is regarding the governor's executive order N524, which is on the affordability of customer energy bills. And I'd like to first hear any public comment on this item.
This is Judith E. Clay in the courtyard room. There is no public comment on this item. Zara?
Thank you, Judith. The DACAG now welcomes public comments on this item. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so we can call on you. On WebEx, please use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. If you're joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. All commenters should spell your name and give your affiliation for the record, and then share your comment. Do we have any raised hands in the WebEx? Seeing none. Back to you, Julia.
Okay, thank you. So let me just give a little bit of background on this executive order and why we thought it made sense to bring it to this group and just make sure it's on everybody's radar. So the governor issued an executive order at the end of October. And it's around the fact that we have rapidly rising electric bills, and this executive order is focused on cutting ratepayer funded programs that are part of people's bills. The specific, I've got a summary that someone else prepared that I have been relying on. And some of the things that it requires is the CEC to analyze all ratepayer programs that it oversees and administers for unduly costs and recommendations for alternatives to ratepayer funds. That is due January 1st. The CPUC is to conduct a cost-benefit analysis of programs and rules that it oversees that may be unduly adding to electric rates and making recommendations for alternatives to ratepayer funds. They're supposed to do that while also making recommendations for modifying costs without compromising reliability, public health, and 2045 climate goal progress. That's also due January 1st. The CPUC is also requested to take immediate action to sunset underperforming programs or programs whose costs exceed benefits to ratepayers and return funds to ratepayers as a bill credit. CARB is also, there's some requests to CARB. There are some requests to the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety. And then the CPUC is requested to pursue external federal funds, which we know are probably going to be very short in supply, and directs the IOs to pursue other external federal funds to reduce electric bills. The reason that we wanted to put this on the agenda just for awareness and also some discussion and guidance if anyone has insight goes back to what I was talking about before, where these cost effectiveness tests that have historically been used to evaluate ratepayer programs consistently undervalue and disadvantage priority communities. And this is because those programs for hard to reach, hard to serve, underserved, disadvantaged communities can be more costly to administer because you may be providing you may be covering the full costs of a direct install energy efficiency program rather than just offering a rebate, for instance, right? But you also may be getting the same or commensurate energy and other benefits out of that same program. And then the cost effectiveness test that we heard about earlier today, it just doesn't pencil out, right? And so what can end up happening is that the programs for customers who might do these things anyway, might take climate action anyway, those get deemed cost effective and they stay. And then the programs for customers who are really being the most impacted and can't afford to do anything about it, those are the first to go. There's also sort of an inherent question here about for me, about the logic of looking at programs that are designed to reduce energy usage as a way to lower energy bills. I think that, from my perspective, that's not the most effective way to go about it. I also have a tremendous amount of sympathy for staff who have to do like a huge amount of work with not a ton of direction by January 1st. So I also want to call that out. And to the extent that any of us can be helpful to you all, like, please let us know. But this could have some we don't know yet, right? But this could have some really significant impacts on the programs that we advise on, right? And what those look like. And so I would love to hear if anyone has heard anything more about this, if there are requests that we might have, recommendations we might have, comments that anyone wants to make. Go for it, Sarah. And then Alina.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would like to request, I don't know who at the respective agencies is kind of leading this effort. It would be nice to hear like what they're thinking, what they're doing and thinking of doing, and how this may really impact the work of agencies, because a lot of the language in here seems up for interpretation, I guess. Like, I would be interested to know what how are we defining what an underperforming program is, et cetera. And so I know that it's probably there's somebody assigned at each agency to start, pressing out and how they're gonna respond. So I guess it'd be good to hear from them. Maybe although I know that our December meeting is going to be already full of administrative stuff from, I don't know. If
We
there's
can
any-
always move that administrative stuff if we think this is a more pressing issue.
Yep, Sarah, this is Judith E. Clay in the Energy Division. As you know, this executive order, we're going to be working with the administration and the governor's office probably until January when it will come out, in public. So I don't think before then it will be, appropriate for staff to even say what their strategy is, because, we're going to be cooperating with these other agencies and the governor's office in this. So
should we
I think
then
I
as a
think
board, as an advisory group request a public, should we as an advisory group request a public process from the governor's office? It sounds like there's
I'm not going to
a
advise you
process plan.
on that. You're advising us. So I would say that we did, we have had various on banks on affordability. There are some breadcrumbs in terms of past thoughts of the CPUC. I guess one interpretation of underperforming is where there are funds that have been allocated to a program and they are unspent, so that might be one way to approach that. But I think there has been a lot of discussion about affordability at our commission recently. So there's, probably a sense of it there. And then, of course, I think that this was being set up for the January legislative session. So then I think, that's probably where there'll be a lot of input from all sorts of stakeholders as well.
Thanks, Judith. Elena.
I think I sort of had some similar questions, which is that, once the PUC and CUC are prepared, I'd love a presentation on thoughts and plans, but maybe before then we could get just a presentation on like decision-making, like who is responsible for what, in terms of not what the decision is, but just who is making those decisions in the first place and what the process is for that.
This is going through the governor's office.
Sure, but from the governor's office and then the agency, someone at the agency makes decisions? I guess
Yeah, probably. I will say, since I'm a public member, that it probably is going through the president's office of the PUC.
Okay.
And then the CEC, I don't know if they have a president as well, right? So, or the chair. Probably works closely with whoever is in like the energy division. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that just would be interesting to know who is making these decisions in the first place. And then we can think about who would present and at what point
because
we
it's
want that
governor's
input.
executive. I think because it's an executive order, it's like it's not a normal procedure. Like there's not a standard procedure in how to respond. But maybe somebody from the PUC or CEC can clarify.
Okay.
It's just, I think that's what Judith is saying, that and there is like the governor's advisor who leads on energy, which used to work at the PUC in government affairs.
Thank you.
Chelsea.
thank you. Of course, echo what a lot of what's already been said. Definitely also want to see a definition for underperforming. Definitely worried about programs, low income discount programs getting cut, especially like the Pharaoh program, which like it has really low enrollment compared to eligibility. And like, you know, is that because the utilities aren't very good at, you know, public outreach and enrollment? But I'm wondering if, you know, what this body can do to, because it seems like many of us are very concerned. I'm concerned about this and it's very vague. I'm curious if anyone has context for like where this executive order came from, but also like I don't know if the DACAG has done this in the past, but like can we write like a formal letter to the governor's office with like, you know, I don't feel like we have enough information yet to like have a formal position, but just to be like, here's what our concerns are, here are some questions we want answered. Please provide context as well, or something like that.
Yeah, can we decide to draft a letter without and bring it to the next meeting, even though we don't have quorum, and then vote on the letter at the next meeting? Can I get advice on that?
Hi, Julia. Yeah, so there isn't any decision making here. If a DACAG member would like to draft something, they could go ahead and do that. And then at our agenda setting meetings, we could talk about whether it's appropriate to agendize the discussion and adoption of a letter.
Okay, thank you. Sinead.
Thank you. I agree for about everything that's been said. The question I have may not have an answer, but do we know what programs are considered to be eliminated or being reviewed for this? And if we don't, again, I support writing this letter, but also requesting as an official body to be party to the discussion of what programs are being considered, and if we can have an input, at least a say about it, to be part of the decision making if we're allowed to. Because otherwise, I don't even see the purpose of this group existing if we can't even chime in and try to save these programs, because these programs were created because there was a huge, issue of equity and access and energy cost that is affecting, a huge number of low income and disadvantaged communities throughout the state. And these problems are still persistent. These programs are not performing because there are problems. There are barriers to implementation. As many state programs go, that these great programs come out, and then we have to make sure that the wrong group is not benefiting from the funds, and then we start building these barriers and making the access even more complicated, and then we end up not using the funds for what they're intended to be used for. So it's very, very concerning to me when there is a budget issue that these are the easiest ones to cut, because there aren't people going out protesting saying like, you can't do this. So if we're doing our jobs, I feel like we need to do a little more than just talk about it and just try to make our voices heard on behalf of the communities. Thank you.
I could not agree more. Is there anyone who can answer that question of if there's some way?
So I would say it would be fine if in your letter, if you choose to do a letter, you identify critical programs. I mean, I think we are looking at all programs, so they may not really necessarily be ones you're interested in. For example, there's a bioenergy program called BioMat, which is undersubscribed and which is, it's a above the normal market costs. You know, so there are a lot of programs that we have, and it would probably be useful to identify ones, you know, that you're concerned with and that are especially important. And I would also just note that this is about affordability, and of course, with affordability, we're worried about energy burden. And so I think, you know, it would be great if you would highlight those programs that are important to those objectives.
Judy, I mean, that would be great if we know the programs that are being reviewed, right? That would be helpful.
I don't know what they are, and I don't know, you know, and I don't think you're going to have us provide that before the governor does. We're not going to step in front of the governor. So I think there's, yeah. So that's why you guys are talking among yourselves, because we can't really speak to this. And I know that's frustrating, but that's, you know.
It's any ratepayer funded program though, like any ratepayer funded program, any and every. Is there a list somewhere, like online, of any and every ratepayer
Is
funded
the
program?
what can someone, is it the costs report that we do every year? For rate that lists a lot of the programs. Cheryl, are you 695? Is that it? 695 report?
For all the costs.
Yeah. Is it Paul Phillips's
report?
I think,
yeah, the DACAG had a presentation on that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that has a lot of information about where the costs come from. It's an annual report that the PUC issues. Sarah Sharp, is it raising some dim memories? I think it's the 695 report. Probably
not really, but
okay.
I got it in the notes. Okay.
Okay, SB 695 maybe, or Paul, maybe we'll, if that's not it, then it, you know, maybe we can find that.
So I would just say, you know, what Judith is saying is that, you know, we're not aware that there's like a list or something that we can give you to react to. And I think that, but you don't want to miss an opportunity. And I think talking about programs you may be concerned with, principles that should be considered, but, you know, also don't assume that it's a program that's like necessarily, because it's all costs, right? It's all costs that affect affordability, as Judith was saying. So, and it does seem like it's probably a letter that, I don't know if it's maybe a joint letter that goes to the CPUC and the CEC, since you're advisory to those two agencies. And that, and, you know, we're each going to be drafting our, you know, per the executive order reports to the governor's office. So I think, at least when I saw that this was going to be on the agenda today, I thought, oh, this is an opportunity for you to sort of give some feedback that can help that consideration, right? Without, I mean, and this came up very quick for everyone. So it's not like, oh, there's this list out there already to react to. And so I think giving us some feedback of the kind of things we should be considering that we can share internally, even verbally, something next time. If you, I mean, even the December meeting is going to be coming up pretty close to, you know, because it is a very quick turnaround for the report. So I guess I'm just trying to encourage you, don't sort of be paralyzed by there may not be something specific for you to react to, because I think we're all in the same boat in that regard.
And I saw that Commissioner Houck has joined us, it appeared. So I don't know if there's any context. We're talking about the executive order on affordability.
Yes, I don't know that I have anything to add to what Cheryl said. We're, I think, still looking at what and how we're going to address it. I think most of us found out about it the same time you did. So we're still trying to sort through it as well. But I agree with Cheryl. Any feedback or specific things you want us to look at, I think it would be good to send a letter to both agencies. And I'm not sure procedurally what the best way would do that is, given the timing and approvals that you would need. I don't, as far as, so I'll leave that to the legal advisors to let you know, but I think that would be helpful for us to be able to consider as well.
They may agendize something for the next meeting but maybe circulating a draft earlier than the meeting might be useful, just so that we would know what was in the letter a little bit earlier, even though it's not been adopted by you officially.
And Vanessa may weigh in here, but I think a lot of times, at least from the CPUC perspective, the reason we need a letter is maybe we need it to, like, related to being something, a formal aspect that's actually written that can inform a proceeding. But certainly something like this, you can give feedback that could be shared broadly, right? That we can take notes on and everything, especially given the quick turnaround time. So I think, understanding when maybe something formal is really needed versus just, providing your feedback that we can document.
Okay, let's hear
And
from
whether it's
Elena.
official feedback or individual feedback as well may make a difference, but.
Yeah, thank you. Let's hear from Elena, and then we can go into any specific programs that people might be concerned about and any sort of general feedback that folks can take away from this meeting. Go ahead, Elena.
I might be transitioning us to that right away anyway, which is I want to sort of uplift what Chelsea said again, which is trying to figure out why something might be underperforming. And if it is a program that the utilities don't support, it seems like, well, let's say we're having trouble with a certain low income program because the utility isn't doing a great job at marketing it and putting it out there, and then it therefore gets cut. Not only is that problematic now, but that also creates a perverse incentive, so that anytime this moves forward, they do not have an incentive to do a good job on programs that they don't support like that. And so I think that is a huge risk, not to get them to do a better job, but to not necessarily perform well. So I want to flag that as a potential issue. And I think another metric that would be really helpful would be to think about the relative bill impact of each of these programs. So if this is some kind of incentive that ends up having a fraction of a cent impact on bills, and cutting it might have a huge impact on, let's say, medical baseline customers who don't have access to resilient energy, but really it's not going to make any huge effect overall. I think that should come into account too. So maybe there's some kind of threshold where under a threshold for a certain size program, cutting it isn't going to have any meaningful impact on affordability. Maybe it shouldn't even be considered as something that could get cut. Anyway, those are my two thoughts.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I mean, my understanding is that this is like a couple dollars on everybody's utility bill, like at least for CPUC funded programs. I mean, it is just like already not a meaningful amount of money on people's bills to make a difference on affordability. And yeah, so and especially after we hear from the last presentation how utility profits are at least 10% of a customer's bill. This is like $1 or $2, $2-3, right? So it just seems sort of problematic on a lot of levels. And I have some recommendations too, but I'll go to Chelsea.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to share also, I mean, I don't hate everything in this. I think there's some mention of utilities controlling costs that they spend on capital projects for wildfire prevention, which ends up getting passed on to, ratepayers, and that I'm in support of, you know. So I'm wondering if, you know, again, we do a letter with a sort of analysis, we can point to these sort of specific things.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like this is a body that cares about affordability, right? And yeah, so that's a really excellent point as well.
Yeah. Oh,
one of,
I was sorry.
no, go.
I was just gonna add about the savings that you mentioned, Julia. It's like, you know, if a person is paying $150, you take off even $10, isn't gonna make a whole lot of difference for that customer. And a one-time reduction is not gonna, you know, is not gonna make a huge difference if it's not something that goes on. And I mean, and let's face it, utility rates keep going up. If you reduce it by $10 this year, by next year, it might have already gone up by $20. So that is not realized. But programs that are implemented that could help, that could have long-term effects are so important and so needed that I think everything has to be done to protect these programs. But then again, I don't know what these programs are, right? So we're kind of in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do think this is a place where the equity framework could be really helpful as like a vetting tool for, you know, if these programs are being, I think the wording that concerns me in the executive order is again this emphasis on cost effectiveness. And again, like what cost effectiveness metric are we using? And to what extent does it value equity focused programs? And right now, none of the cost effectiveness metrics value equity focused programs. They just don't. So if there's a way to use the framework and to say like, okay, is this program providing these benefits, these non-energy benefits, these workforce benefits, and somehow get that into the calculation, that would be great. I'm thinking a lot about the programs run by the regional energy networks. And there was just two new regional energy networks approved for rural California, northern rural California, central rural California. And those are locally driven bodies that implement energy efficiency programs specifically for hard to reach and underserved communities. And for that reason, they're exempted from some of the cost effectiveness calculations that the investor owned utilities have to run on their programs. So seeing something like cost effective programs that are not cost effective need to be taken out, to me puts all of those regional energy network programs that are specifically directed to hard to reach customers at risk, because they're not necessarily cost effective, and that's on purpose, right? That's because there's been an inequity identified in the system, and these RENs were set up to address that inequity. So that's one. I'm also thinking about any program that, I don't know if I should put in the, let's say you have two contractors working on the same program. One contractor is paying their employees prevailing wage, and another contractor is paying their employees minimum wage. The prevailing wage program is more expensive. They're probably delivering the same energy benefits, but one of them is exploiting workers and the other one is providing people with economic opportunity. So the whole cost effectiveness framework is just sort of inherently broken because it does not recognize or value any of those types of things. So I'd be worried about those types of impacts too. Anything else? Other feedback, other specific programs people want to call out as being just really valuable and important? Yeah, Elena.
I don't have any specific programs. One sort of overarching thought is also to think about how old the programs are. Like if a program just came out and isn't effective yet, a lot of these things take a couple iterations to sort of get going. Like, oh, we tried X and we didn't reach it. Like, let's try an iteration. So I think that seems like a valuable component. And then I guess the next thing is what our next steps are.
Yeah, it sounds like next step is for someone to start drafting a letter. And we or
Can you
we
remind
can
me
take
how
a couple
many
volunteers.
people can work together?
Yeah,
Two?
we can take a
Or
few volunteers.
is it just two?
2, 3.
And while
Happy to-
you're figuring out who's the lucky 2 or 3, I just wanted to note that it is Senate Bill 695 report, and the last one for 2024 came out July of 2024, and it's on our website. So that's a good place to start to see where it's a report to limit utility costs and rate increases, basically, an annual report that we do. So
Yeah,
it
and I
has,
believe Paul reported on it, and we can probably even guide you to where that presentation is as kind of a redux roadmap to that
Right.
report as well.
and Commissioner Baker also very much focused on it, because I think he spoke to you right when it came out, probably in July.
Vanessa, can you weigh in on the DACAG's next steps about how they can work together? I believe it's less than quorum, but if you could confirm that.
Yeah, I mean, we also want to be mindful that it doesn't take some like a separate, like this is becoming a separate advisory group within an advisory group. So I would almost stick to the similar structure we have with SMEs. And I think that was the approach taken for updates to the equity framework, if I recall, Julia, where it was 2 volunteers who kind of came forward. Here we can't vote on any specific individuals to take on tasks, but if there's volunteers.
I'm happy to be one of those people, and I'd love a buddy. Yay, Elena. Thank you. I can get something started.
Sorry, who was that?
That was
Should
Elena.
I put this on the minutes?
Sure. Just we did not vote on it. Just that's.
Well, we don't have enough. We don't have
We
a quorum to vote.
volunteered.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm encouraged to know that so many people are paying attention to this, to know that there is a lot of shared concern around it. And again, my sympathy to the agencies and the staff who have to pull all this information together in a very short time. If there's any way that we can be helpful in an individual capacity or as a member group, please do let us know. Okay. With that, I will move on to item 10, which is DACAG member updates on priority areas. Any priority area updates? I think could we have the part? Yes, perfect.
I was gonna say, where's the
Talked a little
list?
bit about the JDI CEC equity proceeding already. And I have a note here regarding SB 100 and then the non-energy impacts proceeding at the CEC. Possibly those are members who are not
Yeah,
present today.
like which section, which category does that fit under? It's not any of these on the list.
SB 100 is long-term planning.
Oh, yeah, that one but
yeah,
I don't know anything about that. I was at the non-energy impacts workshop, but I think it was before the previous DACAG meeting. I remember correct, but maybe not.
Oh, I think we forgot to report out at the last DACAG. That's what happened. We ran out of time.
Maybe.
Because I think
can't
we
remember.
did have a meeting. I had an SB 100 meeting. It was before the last one, but I think we ran out of time to talk about it.
Got it. Anything folks remember that you want to share?
I can talk about that. Yes. We had a meeting with representatives from the CEC, PUC, and CARP to talk about SB 100, the scoping plan, and integrated resource plans. It was like all of the long-term planning from 3 different agencies in an hour, which meant that we didn't cover it all. I talked about the need for quantifiable non-energy benefits to be included in SB 100, and I asked for a full DACAG presentation on how non-energy benefits would be included within the SB 100 report so that we could provide concrete feedback as a whole group rather than just me individually. Hopefully later this year. And Julia, I don't know if you or Roman can sort of speak to trying to set that up. And I also, I think we had a conversation about the potential for to get an IRP presentation in January from the PUC when that starts up again. That's the short version, I think.
That's great. So we have our next agenda planning meeting, I believe, next week. So maybe we can just make sure that you said the IRP and SB 100 presentations.
Yeah, so I think what we want is an SB 100 presentation where we talk explicitly about the non-energy benefits and sort of can deep dive into what's being included and what isn't. It seems like a lot of it might be sort of qualitative or they're not going to get to it, and what we really think should be quantitative, and also the potential for that to be at like a high spatial scale, because right now it seems like it's a very large spatial scale that doesn't really get to anything that we care about from an equity standpoint. So a presentation of exactly what is being included and for us as a whole group to provide benefit to input on that in SB 100 would be great. And then the other one is early next year, the potential, IRP presentation from the PUC.
Great, thank you. Can someone tell me the difference between the non-energy impacts proceeding and the non-energy benefits stuff and the social cost?
I think they're the same. I think they just rebranded as the non-energy. I think they rebranded non-energy benefits to be non-energy impacts.
Yeah. But there is a separate informational proceeding on non-energy impacts that is separate from the non-energy impact benefit analysis as part of SB. Like one is part of SB 100.
Okay.
Right. And one is there's like a separate non-energy impacts informational proceeding.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a proceeding that had a workshop on October 8th, I believe, or that I did attend it, but I wasn't on the panel or anything. Roman was on the panel.
Hi, Aretha here from the CEC. In relation to the non-energy impacts workshop and proceeding, if you all want to reach out to someone in particular, that would be Jane Park. And she was on earlier, but she said to inform you all that feel free to reach out to her with an email. That would be jane.park, janepark@energy.ca.gov. And she's the Chief of Staff for Vice Chair Sivagunda's office.
Well, are they asking for a presentation on this? I'm just, because this would run through our agenda setting. So
I don't think we're asking for that yet. I think this was just an update on our priority areas.
Yeah, yes. And I was just letting
Although this is not,
okay.
this is not actually listed as, it's not actually listed as a priority area there. That's why I was confused.
Okay. I did have a question though, and I don't know, Elena or anyone else, and sorry if I missed it, but did you have a specific aspect of IRP when we go back and talk to our staff who works on that we can be a little focused in our request?
This meeting was like before the last DACAG meeting. Let me just go look what was in my notes.
Okay,
Sorry.
no, thanks.
One sec.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I can also make a report, an update on the building industrial gas system decarbonization. That's not with the SMEs, but there was just a workshop yesterday that was hosted by the joint IOUs. It was called, I think some other people from our advisory group were on there, but it was the Income Qualified and Clean Energy annual meeting. And it was interesting. And if you're interested in, I think their slides are available, where they all kind of highlighted what programs they have going on for income qualified. Yeah, income qualified programs, and it was focused on building decarbonization. And they did discuss like various things. And for example, SoCalGas talked about their hydrogen blending pilots and other things.
Thanks, Sarah. Elena?
So I had 2 items here, taking a look at my notes. In terms of integrated resource planning, I think it was pretty high level on, giving us an opportunity to figure out about the process and when to weigh in and everything else. And then the other part here, what I have for my notes is that I had asked for the slide deck from this SME meeting to be shared with all of DACAG. I'm not sure if that got shared. Did this reach everyone on SB 100
I don't remember
and
seeing
IRPs?
it, but I don't
Yeah,
think
so I don't know if I can sort of reiterate that, if those slide decks that were shared with me in the SME meeting, I think would be helpful to get them out to everybody.
Hi, Lena. This is
Dorothy.
apologies.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. We'll make sure to share that. I'll make sure to share that today. Apologies for that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Sarah, did you have another comment? Nope.
Oh, sorry.
You're good. Anything else from anyone else? Elena, do you have another comment? Just a leftover hand. Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for doing that additional work outside of these meetings and reporting back to our group. Item 11, DACAG member updates regarding LOIB, or Low Income Oversight Board engagement. Roman is our LOIB liaisons. I do not believe there's any updates, that there are any updates related to this item. We were talking about maybe doing a shared meeting with them, but the coordination was a little bit challenging. So I think we can move on to item 12, which is updates from CEC and CPUC staff. We can start with the CEC.
Hello, everyone.
Hey
This
there.
is Ryan Young, Deputy Public Advisor. I just wanted to make an announcement that I am really happy to welcome a new staff person. Sarah Miles has joined our office in the capacity of Workforce Development Advisor. So Sarah, if you're on, would you mind coming and welcoming? Introducing yourself? Sarah still on? She might be having audio trouble, so we'll try again in a second.
It's very exciting. Welcome, Sarah. Any other CEC updates or announcements? Okay.
Can folks hear me?
Hi.
Hi, apologies. I've been having tech issues, but just wanted to note that we'll be sending out information to some compiled information to DACAG members as per usual. Either today or Monday morning, we'll try to add that information that Elena mentioned. And just as a note, that was sent previously, that presentation, the SB 100 presentation, it was sent in October. So we'll make sure to send that again.
Did that include the IRP and all three presentations?
Yeah, it was the combined presentation. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, so we'll send that again. And then there are a few updates from our different divisions regarding opportunities. So in your capacities, if you could share that with your networks for whomever may find that valuable. And there's some meetings coming up that we'll make sure to highlight as members may want to attend. And that's going to be it for me at this time. Oh, apologies. Just wanted to tack on just what Commissioner Monahan said earlier regarding the business meeting. I will send out an email seeing if any members are interested in being part of the December meeting and making comments in your capacity as DACAG members or in your individual capacity. And this would be for the investment, the plan that was mentioned before. So look forward to that as well.
Great. Thank you, Dorothy and Ryan. Moving on to the CPUC, any announcements or updates?
Hi, this is Zara Jimshade with the CPUC. I'm going to invite Mia Hart to share an announcement.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is Mia Hart. I'm an analyst in Energy Division on the rate discounts team. I wanted to share information about a workshop that will be happening this Monday, November 18th, from 2 to 4 p.m. So the workshop will be to share draft recommendations for a phase 2 of the concurrent application system, or CAS, that were developed by the CAS working group. So CAS is a platform. It will be a statewide platform enabling low-income customers to apply to multiple utility programs from a single platform. And phase 1 of CAS is expected to launch in 2026 and will focus on the income qualified programs from the large electric and gas IOUs, including the ESA, CARE, FARA, and the DACAG GT, the Disadvantaged Communities Green Terrace Program. And for a phase 2 system expansion, the draft recommendations are to expand to additional low-income energy, water, and telecommunications programs, and then also include additional features like income verification. So overall, the recommendations for a phase 2 platform expansion will kind of focus on improving the application process for these income qualified programs, as well as increasing coordination between agencies and utilities, and also enhancing the use of data sharing and other features that can help facilitate outreach and enrollment processes. So the purpose of the workshop, again, is just to share the draft recommendations for phase 2 and to seek public comment, public feedback. And the final recommendations from the working group will be presented to the commission for consideration next year. So hope to see some of you there. The draft recommendations are posted to the public documents area site. I can drop a link to in the chat for that. That has some information about the agenda, log information as well. And then if you're not able to attend on Monday, there's also an opportunity to submit written comment anytime before or through Monday, November 25th. Thanks.
Thanks, Mia.
Thank you. I have a couple of other announcements. Speaking to what Sarah was saying about the workshop yesterday, the investor-owned utilities, in coordination with the CPUC Energy Division, hosted their annual Income Qualified and Clean Energy Programs workshop. Since 2020, the IOU's Low Income Energy Efficiency Program, Energy Savings Assistance, or ESA, hosts a coordination workshop for income qualified and clean energy programs in November. This workshop was an opportunity for the ESA program to share out the larger coordination activities with other programs, as well as for similar low income or clean energy focused programs to present to a large stakeholder audience. The theme of this year's workshop was electrification, including lessons learned, barriers, and or results from existing or completed electrification pilots or programs. So yesterday's workshop featured presentations and group discussion. If there are other folks that attended the workshop and have feedback, questions, or thoughts on future workshop topics, please reach out to CPU staff member Jillian Weaver, and I'll put her email in the chat. The next step for this workshop team will be to produce a summary report, and that'll be in December, and the report will be shared with the DACAG for awareness. And then the last item that I have is about the climate adaptation proceeding, which will be hosting its technical workshop next Wednesday, November 20th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. In the courtyard room at CPUC headquarters in San Francisco, as well as online. This workshop will largely include presentations from researchers and other technical experts in conversations around measuring things like adaptive capacity and climate vulnerability. And we welcome any and all community participation into that discussion. So if you have more questions about climate adaptation proceeding, please reach out to Megan Cook, whose email I will also put in the chat. And that is all from the CPUC. Yes, Dorothy?
Sarah.
Hi,
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. Just wanted to add on a couple of things. So this will also be in the newsletter, but just wanted to thank members for previous engagement on the California Building Energy Action Plan. The action plan draft is currently being reviewed by CPUC and CARB, and it'll be published after it completes that review with CNRA and the governor's office. We'll come back to DACAG for more feedback, and we'll also be going to California Native American tribes and the general public. So look forward to that later on as well. And just wanted to thank members again for utilizing the form we sent out to gauge whether attendance. I know that's a topic coming up in later on. So we tried it for your convenience. So if it works, if it doesn't work, definitely let us know, and definitely you can still send us an email on that. But wanted to thank you for that, and that's it for us.
Julia, you're muted if you're talking.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move to item 13, agenda setting and attendance. Our next DACAG meeting is scheduled for December 12th from 1 to 4 p.m. So that is a Thursday afternoon, not a Friday. So mark your calendars in advance. And I think we've covered any agenda items in the notes that I know staff and others take. So we'll discuss those at the next agenda setting meeting. And I'm now going to move us to item 14 for general public comment.
This is Judith E. Clay in the courtyard room in San Francisco, and we have no public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. DACAG now welcomes public comments on both items on and off the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and will alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm For those joining by phone, please press *3 to raise your hand and then press *6 to unmute. All commenters should spell your name and give your affiliation for the record before sharing your comment. Do we have any comments in the WebEx? Seeing none, turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to item 15, which is adjournment, and we will adjourn as of 3:26 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and engagement and your good work. And have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.
Thanks, Julia.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Good weekend.